That is what's coming out of my coolant tank. Our trip up north from southeast England had taken us on a 5-hour drive up to the Yorkshire Dales. It had gone largely well. I say largely well because I had to stop and change the brake pads on Big Will, the Wonder Wagon, which was a rather unexpected occurrence for a Sunday morning. Nevertheless, once that was done, we headed off to East Yorkshire and visited Robin Hood's Bay and Whitby, and then the following day we drove through the magnificent North York Moors. We headed through North Yorkshire Dales, past Hawes and the Ribblehead Viaduct, off to Cumbria, past Lake Windermere and Lake Coniston, and landed up at the foot of Scafell Pike, where we camped at a great campsite just near Washed Water. Well, here we are, driving rather unexpectedly the Wrynose Pass in Cumbria. Now, I suspect that Scafell Pike is up this way behind us, and we have just driven down that pass over that mountain over there, which is the steepest bit of road that I've encountered in England, certainly so far, even in the UK. So we are going to tackle, I think, the last bit of the Wrynose Pass, because Will got a little bit overheated coming up, which was interesting. The fans didn't come on. But we are going to tackle this ahead of us now. It looks flat on screen, but it is not flat at all. Unfortunately, Will, our T4, overheated twice on the crest of each of the mountain passes. And what caught me by surprise even more so than the beautiful and spectacular views was the fact that the coolant was no longer pink, but black. Faced with a dilemma of being stuck up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere with no chance of recovery, I hoped that I could nurse the Wonder Wagon the 7 hours home without any further incident. I figured that so long as there was coolant circulating around the engine, that I maintained a steady pace and that the weather remained cool, I should, hopefully, without any traffic jams, get the van 7 hours back home.
One eternity later.
The internet will tell you that black coolant is the result of one of three things: a blown head gasket, a nuked engine, or a failed oil cooler, all three of which are not great. And unfortunately, the engine overheated when we climbed the Wrynose Pass. Aside from the fact that it overheated, the fans never came on. The auxiliary pump didn't run when I shut it down, so something's going on. I don't have any faults in VCDS relating to the two temperature sensors on the block. There is a temperature sensor on the radiator. I'm going to just simply replace it. If that's not working, it won't tell the fans to work. So before I proceed any further, I am going to drain this coolant, which you can see is pretty manky. I have no evidence of mayo, like gravy-like substance, in the oil filler, which is usually a telltale that the head gasket has blown. I don't have those obvious telltales, but I have this ridiculously dark coolant. Now, I flushed my coolant system with distilled water and radiator flush until it was flowing clearly. I put a brand new expansion tank on because it was running clear, fresh coolant, and one long trip to the north of England and back, and I have this. So yeah, not feeling particularly stoked right now. Initially, before I flushed it, it looked like coffee. That may have been because at some point in the past, the previous owner had put Radweld or Radseal into the system to cure a leak instead of fix a leak, and therefore that turned the coolant that color, and now it's gone black. And hopefully, when the coolant all comes out and it settles, I don't have an oily residue. Now, what does concern me is that there looks like there are some specks of oil floating in here. The expansion tank is now empty, and you can see it's black in there. That is a brand new expansion tank. It's only a couple of months old. And I'm going to see if I can extract any of that residue from inside the expansion tank. I'd say that's oil. Oh dear. Incidentally, this is a special type of plier that you use to release these spring clamps. Now, if this is in fact oil in my cooling system, it means that that oil has contaminated all of the coolant passages in the engine, and of course all of the coolant pipes. That is what's coming out of my coolant tank. I don't know if you can see, but on the top of this coolant that I removed from the engine, there's a rainbow. That is oil. No two ways about it. And looking inside the expansion tank, it is definitely oily. Right, next step. Took a few moments to gather myself together, pull myself towards myself. I have started disconnecting the radiator, so I have a couple of issues. Number one is figure out where the oil is getting into the cooling system. I am going to start with the oil cooler because doing a bit of research, it seems the most likely culprit for failing and letting oil into the system. So what I plan to do is remove the existing oil cooler and then replace it with the new oil cooler. There are two coolant hoses that come into the oil cooler. It sits between the oil filter and the oil filter housing. I need to remove the large nut, extract the oil cooler, and then replace it with a new one, reconnect the coolant hoses, and that should be job done. Right, so I have my new oil filter filled with oil, with a little bit of oil on the actual seal. So obviously I've not filled it to the brim, because as you can see it goes on at a bit of an angle, and if I had it filled to the brim it would just leak everything out on me. That is it. New oil cooler fitted, new oil filter fitted. Now I can fill the engine with oil, and we're one step closer to figuring out if our black expansion tank was caused by our oil cooler. I have got a new radiator on order because this one is clearly contaminated. I have a new radiator fan switch, so I can be sure that that is sending the correct signals to these two fans on the radiator. With the fan issue, I need to test whether the fans come on and off. What I'm going to do is jumper each of these fans to 12 volt to make sure that the fans actually work. Both of my fans work, which is good because it means I don't have to replace them. Basically means that the temperature sensor, the fan switch on the radiator, is likely to be faulty, which is why my fans didn't switch on when the temperature got higher than normal on the engine. What I want to do next is flush the engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm temporarily going to bypass the radiator by connecting the inlet and outlet for the radiator together like this using a connector. So I'm doing that in order to not contaminate the new radiator. I'm just going to run it with some radiator flush to try and clean it out, and then systematically drain it, fill it, drain it, fill it a couple of times. I've got this step joiner. It's 32mm inner diameter in these hoses. So this is the plan. I am going to refit the expansion tank, not the new one, but the original one that we've tried to clean out a little bit, and then I'll fill it up with distilled water, coolant, radiator flush, run the engine for a bit, get it all worked up, and then drain it into a bucket and see what it looks like. What I'm hoping for, of course, is that there is no rainbows in the coolant like there were before, because the rainbow means there is oil getting into the system. Don't see any rainbows. So far so good. But what I've just done is drop in a dishwasher tablet into here and gonna see what that does in terms of cleaning the system out. I am fairly confident now that there's no oil coming into the system. So it appears as if changing the oil cooler has solved the problem. Let's give it a couple of more flushes and see what we're left with in the bucket after that. Much cleaner than it's ever been. Running clear now. Happy days. Ta-da! Let's see how close it is to the original. Oh, nice. Fit the fan shroud to it first, shall we? Got to slide into these two clips on that side. Let's go for a test drive. I am happy to say that my coolant issue seems to be resolved. The system is bled properly. I have nice warm air coming out of my side vents, which if you own a T4 you'll know that that's the only place they come out unless you have a caravel. But yeah, very happy. And no more oil in the coolant system, which is brilliant. So I'm about to head to the tunnel, cross over into France and go and have a little bit of holiday. Confident that there's no more oil getting into my cooling system. So I'll catch up with you after this trip. We have now arrived at our campsite for the week on the Dordogne River, just south of Argentat-sur-Dordogne. Can you hear the river? Would you like to see where the river is? Okay.